All right, so the last thing we need to do in terms of converting our components is the main app class. All right, so we're going to be using useState here. So let's get rid of component and let's bring in useState. And I'm going to change the class of app to const app. And let's say equals, turn that to a function. And let's create our state without doing it this way by using useState. So we have users, right? So let's say const users, and we'll say set users, and say useState. And the default is going to be an empty array. So we're basically mimicking this, right? Users, the default is an empty array. We're going to do the same thing here. Let's copy this down a few times. And let's change this to, actually this will be just user, and this will be set user. And this will be an object. Okay, this next one will be repos. And we have set repos. And the default for that will be an array, so we can leave that. Next we have loading, so we'll do set loading, and the default for loading is false. Okay, and then we have alert, which the default is going to be null. All right, so basically this is just the same thing as doing this, except within a functional component with useState. So let's get rid of that. Now we have some editing to do with this other stuff. So let's just start from the top down. So search users, instead of doing this dot set state, we can, in changing loading to true, we can simply call set loading and pass in true. Right? And then let's see, we get our response from Axios, and instead of doing this, we're going to get rid of that, and let's say set users, which will set the user state, to res.data.items, which is our response, and then let's set loading back to false. So it's much more clear what we're doing with these methods: set loading, set user. I'm sorry, that should be set users. And then let's see what else. We have our get user. Again, we're going to just set loading to true. I'll just copy this. So set loading to true, make our response here, or, sorry, our request. Then we'll set loading to false, and let's set our user to res.data. Okay, same thing with repos. We're going to get rid of that. Set loading to true, and then down at the bottom, set loading to true after we set repos to the response. Okay, and then clear users, which is right here. Let's just do we don't even need to set loading to false. We shouldn't have to, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm just going to, let's copy. Oops, I'm sorry. This should be false. Yeah. All right. So we'll grab that. And we just want to set users. We're clearing it out. So we'll set users to an empty array and set loading to false. Okay. So for set alert, instead of this dot set state, we can just simply say set alert, and we can pass this in. I'm sorry, this. Like that, and then we'll do the set timeout, and then again we'll set the alert to just null. So we can say set alert and just pass in null. All right, so that should work. Now there's no render, so let's make sure we get rid of the render, which ends right here. rid of that. We no longer need to pull this stuff from this dot state because there is no this dot state. It's all clearly defined right here. And we're just passing the same stuff in. This, we want to get rid of this dot state. Just pass an alert. What else? We no longer need this dot search users. We don't need this dot anything. What we do need to do, though, is add consts to these methods here. So search users, because they're not methods, I should say functions. They're not methods that are part of a class anymore. So we need to declare them. Okay. So that was quite a few changes, but this should work. Users. All right, let's save it. What do we got here? Parsing set alert has already been declared. Where did I do that? Oh, you know what? I called this the same that I called this, so I can't do that. So instead of set alert, let's call it, what should we call it? Show alert? Yeah, show alert. And then we just have to pass that in down here. Where is it? Right here. Right here, show alert. This can stay set alert because that's part of the props of this component, but the method we want to call here needs to be called something different. So let's save that. Good. And let's try it out. Okay. Good. Let's clear it up. Let's try to submit, and everything works absolutely fine. All right, so we've successfully converted our application from classes to functions using useState and useEffect. Now, this still is not ideal because we don't want to clutter this app.js file up with all this stuff. Especially, imagine if this was a much larger application where we were making all kinds of calls, you know, different resources and stuff like that. This is not the ideal way to build a large application with React. For a small app, even for this app, this would be okay, but it's important to know how to use something else like the context API to be able to manage your app level state better and create actions that aren't right in your app.js file. So we're going to start to look at that next.